On this James the Bike Guy, we're taking a look at the 2020 Trek Fuel EX 9.7, a carbon fiber trail bike with lots of things to talk about. So let's go ahead and get started. But before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button. That way you can see more videos like this into the future. So this here is the Trek Fuel EX lineup. And the Fuel ends up in Trek's full suspension lineup, just above their Super Caliber and Top Fuel, which are more race XC bikes, and just below the Remedy and the Slash, which are more enduro. So this particular bike is really designed around being an awesome workhorse of trail capability, and it has a really wide range of usage. Now, the bike itself is going to be set up with 130 millimeters of ABP rear suspension, and then up front it's going to come with 140 millimeters of travel out of a Fox Rhythm 34. And those travel numbers are really nice because it really allows for this bike to be a nice do-it-all bike where you can do everything from climbing and even an XC style race all the way to light downhill should you want to. Now in New England, where I'm located, this kind of bike is what's most common out on the trails because it handles, punchy uphills, steep descents, and real rocky and rooty terrains really quite well. The neat thing with the bike is it's going to be set up where it's got adjustable geometry as well. So it actually runs what they call a MinoLink, which is an adapter for the rear seat stay length, which allows you to adjust the geometry. In the high position, this bike is actually set up where it's got a BB height of 346 millimeters. It's got a head tube angle of 66.5 and a seat tube angle of 75.5 degrees, and that ends up with a chainstay length of 435 millimeters. Now you can drop that MinoLink down into the low position when you're wanting a little more stability, and that brings the head tube angle a little more slack at 66. The seat tube angle slackens out to 75. You've got a chainstay length that grows just a touch because of the ABP to 437 millimeters, and the BB height drops by 7 millimeters down to 339 millimeters. So those numbers don't seem like a huge change, but it does actually translate to something a bit different out on the trail. Now this frame is the carbon fiber frame. It runs the Mountain OCLV carbon, which allows for internally routed cables. It also has a really trick setup with this water bottle cage where you can pull off the cage, and you'll notice that it's got a spot for a tool roll to go inside. You can fit a tube, your tool roll, just about everything you might need. And it ends up working pretty nice because you can just slide your bottle cage right back on and it closes up. This is a similar system to what's been on some of the Specialized, their SWAT technology, and I really like the fact that it's joined onto this Fuel EX lineup. Now, a neat thing with the carbon frame, it actually carries to the aluminum as well, but the ABP suspension now has a fixed lower mount for the shock. On previous generation Fuels, it had what they called full floater, which is where the seat stay would actually connect up to the shock. And because of the revised suspension design and the nicer shocks, which in this case is a Fox Performance Evolve, which happens to have reactive damping, they no longer need that suspension kinematics to make the rear end perform the way they want. They can actually fix mount the shock, which allows for a stiffer setup in the rear, but also allows them to maintain the pedaling and suspension performance that they were looking for. Now, Trek's claim to fame is of course going to be what they call an ABP rear suspension. So this is of course Boost 148, but you'll notice that the pivot in the rear end is actually split. It's right in between the chainstay and the seat stay, and that allows them to engineer in some great pedaling performance and good bump compliance, but it almost totally separates any braking jack that might happen. So you get a nice active braking pivot, which is what ABP stands for. It's linkage driven through that MinoLink we talked about before and into the rocker arm. And it's a nice setup. It's a great performing bike, especially for the New England trails where I am. The front shock, like we talked about, is this 140 millimeter travel Fox Rhythm 34, so 34 millimeter stanchions. It's of course Boost 110 up front. It's going to run a thick grip damper, and that means you're going to have nice adjustments on compression and rebound and damping, and of course it's going to be air adjustable. For the cockpit, this is running Bontrager's Line cockpit. This is a 35 millimeter alloy handlebar, which is connected up to the steer tube using their Line 35 millimeter stem. And you'll notice this is set up with knock block. And knock block is set up so that they can run the straight shot down tube, so a very straight and stiff down tube. And it keeps the fork crown, or the upper piece of the fork, from contacting the frame. Now, Trek does run this pad just in case on the down tube, but they really don't need it because that knock block limits the amount of steering that can happen. You know, it's an interesting thing when you're holding it in the store or something like that. It seems funny to have that stop, but out on the trail, there's no way you notice it because you never turn that tight. And it really helps allow the frame to be a bit stronger without having to worry about any damage in the event of a crash. Now for the seat post, this is set up using Bontrager's Line dropper post. It's internally routed and 31.6 millimeters in diameter. You've got the Arvada saddle, which is a pretty decent saddle. And then connecting this bike to the ground is actually going to be a set of really nice wheels and tires. This is a place where the bike shines. Bontrager has been making some awesome mountain bike wheels recently, and this is no different. This is an aluminum Bontrager Line Comp 30. This is a 30 millimeter internal width aluminum rim. It's laced up to Bontrager's rapid drive hubs, which the rear rapid drive hub is pretty amazing. It comes stock with 54 points of engagement, but a few dollars can actually upgrade this to 108 points of engagement. And down in the description, I'll have a link to the video on how to do that yourself. All it takes is a few dollars of parts that you can pick up at your local Trek dealer. They can either do it for you or you can take care of it as well. And then the tires are running Bontrager's XR4 team issue tires. These are tubeless ready. They're 120 TPI, an absolutely awesome tire. It's a new rubber compound from them a few years ago, and these tires actually handle super nice. For a drivetrain, it's a pretty simple and standard drivetrain here. You're running a SRAM GX rear derailleur. You're running a SRAM NX 11 to 50 tooth rear cassette, the PG 1230, and then up front you've got a Truvativ Descendant 6K Eagle crankset. So that's a look at this Trek Fuel EX5. Let's go ahead and find out what it weighs. And the Trek Fuel EX 9.7 comes in and weighs 30.69 pounds. Thanks for watching this video on the Trek Fuel EX 9.7. Go ahead and let me know what you think about this 2020 carbon trail bike, as well as be sure you hit that subscribe button and leave a thumbs up. It really lets me know you enjoyed the video.